Imagine living with almost nothing, no phone buzzing, no closet full of choices, no rush to get ahead, and still feeling completely content. Most of us would call that impossible, yet for Tibetan monks, it's daily life. So how can people who own so little laugh so easily, sleep so deeply, and seem so free? What do they know that the rest of us, with all our comfort and options, seem to miss? Their happiness isn't an accident of belief or a trick of faith. It's built, step by step, through choices anyone can learn to make. Not rules, but rhythms. Not denial, but design. Modern life tells us that happiness grows with progress. A bigger house, a faster phone, more options, that's supposed to make us free. And yet, most people today report more stress, more distraction, and less satisfaction than ever before. Now imagine stepping into a Tibetan monastery. There are no advertisements, no endless to-do lists, no race to get ahead. The rooms are plain, the clothes are simple, and daily life follows the same rhythm every day. From the outside, it might look repetitive, even boring. But the people living there radiate something we all crave: calm contentment. This is the paradox of simplicity, that having less can give you more, but it's not just about owning fewer things. It's about removing the noise that clouds the mind. As one monk explained to a Western researcher in Dharamshala, "Look, when your life is light, your heart has space to breathe." In a monastery, everything serves a purpose. The bed, the bowl, the robe, each item is used with care, repaired when needed, and never wasted. Meals are humble but shared together. Time is structured not by productivity, but by presence. The result isn't sit deprivation. It's sits focus. Most of us try to fill emptiness with activity or things. Monks do the opposite. They make emptiness their teacher. They understand something neuroscience now confirms: too many choices overwhelm the brain. Decision fatigue, overstimulation, endless scrolling, all of it keeps the mind restless. But when choices are fewer, attention deepens. In that sense, simplicity isn't a sacrifice, it's a strategy. It helps the mind settle naturally, the way clear water reveals its depth once the mud stops stirring. If you've ever cleaned your desk and suddenly felt lighter, you've felt a glimpse of this truth. Simplicity reduces friction, it saves energy, it builds mental space for what really matters. That's why monks guard it so carefully. Every habit in their life, from what they eat to when they sleep, is built to protect simplicity. It's not a rejection of modern life, but a conscious filter. What helps the mind stay clear? What causes confusion or greed? Everything else is optional. But simplicity doesn't mean stillness alone. There's a reason they can live this way joyfully, not just calmly. To understand that, we have to step into their mindset, the way monks think about life, suffering, and purpose. Because their happiness doesn't come from what they own, but from how they see. And that's where we go next, inside the monastic mind. Before sunrise, the monastery is silent, except for the faint hum of chanting. It's not a performance, it's a kind of mental tuning. Monks begin each day not by planning tasks, but by shaping their minds. To live simply and happily, they first learn to think differently. The heart of that thinking rests on three ancient ideas: impermanence, compassion, and non-attachment. These aren't abstract philosophies. They're daily tools. Impermanence, or anicca, reminds them that nothing lasts: joy, pain, youth, status, even life itself. Most of us react to that truth with fear. We cling harder, we hurry. Monks respond the opposite way, with acceptance. They say, if everything changes, then every moment matters. Instead of fighting change, they use it as a reason to live gently, to appreciate, not possess. This acceptance dissolves much of what makes modern life stressful. A broken phone, a rude comment, a sudden loss, each is seen as part of the same pattern: rising, passing, returning. Nothing personal, nothing permanent. When you see the world that way, anger fades faster, expectations loosen, gratitude grows. The second pillar is compassion. In Tibetan monasteries, compassion isn't an emotion, it's a discipline. Each morning, monks recite phrases like "May all beings be free from suffering." They don't just wish it, they practice it through service, patience, and small acts of care. Washing dishes is an act of compassion. So is listening without judging or walking mindfully so insects aren't crushed underfoot. This daily exercise shifts their sense of self. Happiness stops being something to get and becomes something to share. Modern psychology calls this expanding identity when you see others as part of your own well-being. It naturally lowers anxiety and increases fulfillment. Monks discovered it centuries before science caught up, and then their is non-attachment. People often misunderstand this as indifference, but monks aren't cold or distant. They're clear. They love deeply, but without the fear of losing. Because they know everything changes, they can enjoy it fully while it lasts. Think of holding water in your hands. If you squeeze too tight, it slips away. If you open your palms, it rests there easily. That's non-attachment, loving life with open hands. Together, these three ideas form the mental soil where simplicity grows. A mind that accepts change doesn't crave control. A heart filled with compassion doesn't need much to feel full. And a life guided by non-attachment isn't shaken by loss or failure. This is why monks seem peaceful, even in hardship. Their happiness isn't fragile because it doesn't depend on conditions. It depends on attitude, and that attitude is trained, not inherited. As one abbot once told a visiting student, "We are not special. We are simply practiced." That's a key difference. Monastic peace isn't magic, it's method. And the first visible layer of that method begins outside the mind, in how they live day to day. To understand that, we'll move from thought to action. How monks simplify the outer world to keep the inner world clear. If you were to walk through a Tibetan monastery, you'd notice something instantly.
Space.
Not the kind we rush to fill with furniture or decorations, but clear, intentional emptiness. Each object has its place. Each wall, its purpose. That emptiness isn't set accidental. It sets design. Monks believe that a cluttered space creates a cluttered mind. So they strip life down to essentials: a robe, a bowl, a mat, a few simple tools. Every possession is chosen for function, not fashion. The result, a life where there's nothing to distract from what really matters. It's easy to think this simplicity is only possible in monasteries. But it sits really a principle, not a location. Monks simplify their outer world so that their inner one can breathe. And anyone can do the same. One drawer, one routine, one habit at a time. In some monasteries, there's even a ritual cleaning before sunrise. It's not about dust, it's about respect. Sweeping the floor is symbolic, clearing the mind of yesterday's thoughts. When monks wash their bowls after eating, it's not a chore but a meditation. They're training attention to be fully present in every act, no matter how small. Western minimalism often talks about decluttering, but for monks, it's deeper. They don't just remove what's unnecessary, they replace it with awareness. Every action becomes a choice. Every object, a teacher. One young monk once said to a visitor, "When you own little, you take care of everything. And when you take care of everything, it takes care of you." That sentence sums up the monastic relationship with the material world. Compare that to the modern home, full of things we rarely use, clothes we don't wear, notifications we don't need. We surround ourselves with someday items that quietly demand our attention. Each one is a small mental weight. And just like carrying a heavy backpack, we get used to it, until we set it down. Simplifying the outer world doesn't mean throwing everything away. It means keeping what supports peace and letting go of what drains it. In practice, monks follow three quiet principles. First, limit choice. Fewer decisions save energy. That's why robes are simple, meals are routine, and schedules are predictable. It's not about control. It's about freeing the mind for higher work. Second, care for what you have. Objects are treated with gratitude, not attachment. Before using something, many monks pause briefly, a moment of awareness, like saying thank you. It turns ordinary life into continuous mindfulness. Third, share whenever possible. Tools, books, and even clothes are often communal. Ownership becomes service, another way to practice compassion through simplicity. These habits create an environment where calmness is normal, not earned. Imagine starting your morning not with chaos or noise, but in a clear, quiet space that reflects the same clarity you want inside. That's the essence of the monastic design: simplicity outside, serenity inside. But order alone isn't set enough to create happiness. The next secret lies in rhythm: how monks structure their time and see discipline not as restriction but as freedom itself. If simplicity clears the space, discipline fills it with purpose. In the monastery, every day unfolds almost exactly the same: rise before dawn, chant, meditate, eat, work, rest, repeat. To an outsider, it might seem repetitive, even rigid. But for monks, that rhythm is liberation. Discipline, they say, isn't about control, it's about freedom from chaos. When the mind knows what comes next, it can finally relax. There's no endless decision-making, no wasted energy wondering what to do. The structure itself becomes a form of peace. In one Tibetan monastery near Ladakh, the morning bell rings at 4:30 a.m. sharp. The monks rise in silence, fold their bedding, and begin chanting together before sunrise. After that comes meditation, cleaning, and breakfast, all timed with almost military precision. But what's interesting is the mood: no rush, no complaints, no competition. Every task is done with quiet presence. To most of us, routine feels like confinement. We associate freedom with choice, variety, spontaneity. Yet, paradoxically, too much freedom often makes us restless. We spend hours deciding what to eat, what to watch, when to work, and end up feeling drained before we've begun. Monks remove that burden through structure. Their daily discipline creates a stable frame where the mind can settle, much like a river flows calmly within its banks. Without that frame, life spills in all directions. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that predictable routines reduce anxiety, improve focus, and even enhance creativity. It's not the routine itself that matters, but the mental space it opens. When monks meditate, cook, or sweep floors at set times, they set freeing themselves from the tyranny of what next. They've already decided, so the mind can rest. There's also a deeper reason behind their discipline. It trains humility. Monks perform chores that serve the community: sweeping halls, preparing meals, fetching water. No task is beneath anyone. An elder monk might wash dishes beside a novice, and both see it as equal practice. Through repetition and service, ego softens. When pride dissolves, peace enters. A visiting volunteer once asked a senior monk, "Don't you get bored doing the same thing every day?" He smiled and replied, "Only when I forget to pay attention." That's the essence of monastic discipline, not forced repetition but mindful consistency. It's not about how much they do, but how they do it. Each action, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity for awareness. Brushing teeth, sweeping a floor, folding a robe. Each is meditation in motion. If you bring that mindset into modern life, you start to see how discipline can actually simplify everything. Waking up at the same hour, eating simple meals, scheduling quiet time, it's not about becoming strict, it's about becoming free from decision fatigue and chaos. Discipline protects your energy the way walls protect a garden, not to trap you, but to keep distractions out, so what's valuable can grow. And what grows best inside that frame? The mind itself. Because once the outer order is set, monks turn inward to the true practice, training the mind to see clearly and stay steady, no matter what life brings. With simplicity outside and discipline in place, monks turn to their real work, the training of the mind. It's often said in Tibetan monasteries, you can sweep a courtyard 1,000 times and still live in dust if you don't sweep your mind. For monks, the mind is both the problem and the path. They don't try to escape thoughts or emotions, they learn to understand them. And the main tool for that is meditation, not as a mystical act, but as mental hygiene. In most monasteries, meditation happens twice a day, though mindfulness continues all the time. There are many forms: breath awareness, visualization, compassion meditation, walking meditation, but they share one goal: to see thoughts as passing clouds, not absolute truths. Let's start with breath meditation, the simplest form. A monk sits cross-legged, spine straight, eyes relaxed, and focuses on the breath entering and leaving the nose. The mind wanders, that sits natural. The moment the monk notices, he gently brings attention back to the breath. That tiny act, noticing and returning, is the essence of mind training. It's like lifting a mental weight. Every repetition builds awareness. Over time, the mind stops chasing every impulse. Thoughts still come, but they lose their power to control emotion. It's not that monks don't feel anger, fear, or sadness. They just don't let those feelings take the driver's seat. They've trained the space between feeling and reaction. Science now echoes what monasteries have practiced for centuries. Research on Tibetan monks shows that consistent meditation strengthens brain regions linked to attention and emotional regulation. In other words, monks literally reshape their brains through discipline and awareness. Then there's Lojong, mind training through slogans. It's an old Tibetan method, where monks memorize short phrases to reframe daily struggles. One says, "Be grateful to everyone." Another, "Turn all mishaps into the path." These reminders teach the mind to see every situation, even hardship, as a lesson in awareness and compassion. When a monk spills tea, he doesn't curse his luck, he practices patience. When he feels irritation, he uses it as a mirror, not a weapon. Over years, this habit transforms personality. Calm becomes second nature, not performance. Modern psychology calls this response flexibility, the ability to pause before reacting. It's the key difference between being driven by emotion and guided by wisdom. Monks achieve it not by suppressing feelings, but by meeting them with attention and kindness. Another central practice is Tonglen, or sending and receiving. During this meditation, monks imagine breathing in the suffering of others and breathing out relief, peace, or love. It might sound symbolic, but it's a radical empathy exercise. It rewires the instinct to avoid pain, teaching the heart to stay open, even to difficulty. When practiced daily, this kind of mental training dissolves the me-first mindset that causes so much stress in modern life. The monk stops seeing life as a competition. The line between my happiness and yours fades, and suddenly compassion feels as natural as breathing. That's why even in poverty or isolation, monks can radiate joy. Their happiness isn't based on comfort, it's based on clarity. As one teacher in Nepal put it, a trained mind can live peacefully anywhere. An untrained one will suffer even in paradise. Once the mind is steady, it naturally opens outward toward others. Because the more clearly monks see, the more they realize joy deepens through connection, not isolation. That's where the next step begins, living with compassion. If there's one habit that defines monastic life more than any other, it's compassion. Not as a mood or moral rule, but as a daily practical discipline. In the monastery, compassion is woven into everything, how monks speak, eat, work, and even think. It's the invisible current that keeps community life flowing smoothly. During morning prayers, monks repeat the metta or loving kindness verses. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. It is not just poetry, it is brain training. Repeating these words daily reshapes the way they perceive others, not as rivals or strangers, but as part of the same living web. When a new monk joins, he's not taught compassion through theory, but through experience. Older monks model patience when he makes mistakes. Meals are shared equally, no matter rank or seniority. Even leftovers are offered to animals outside the temple walls. Through these small, repetitive acts, compassion becomes muscle memory. Modern psychology now confirms what monks have practiced for centuries. Empathy-based living reduces anxiety and strengthens a sense of purpose. Helping others activates the same reward centers as pleasure itself. So when monks say service is joy, it's not metaphorical, it's biological. But compassion, as the monks see it, starts with something even deeper, understanding suffering. Before one can wish happiness for others, one must first recognize that suffering is universal. We all hurt, we all hope, we all struggle. This shared humanity dissolves walls between people. There's a saying among Tibetan teachers, pain is not the enemy, ignorance is. By seeing pain clearly, your own or someone else's, you grow wiser instead of bitter. That's why monks don't run away from suffering. They lean toward it with care. When someone is ill or grieving, the whole community gathers not just to comfort but to be present. Presence itself becomes the medicine. Compassion also guides how monks handle conflict. In monasteries, disagreements happen about duties, decisions, or even personality clashes. But instead of arguing, monks pause, reflect, and speak only after cooling the heart. This habit is rooted in mindfulness. Never let words leave your mouth faster than your breath. It's such a simple rule, but it keeps peace alive. And compassion doesn't stop at people. Tibetan Buddhism teaches kindness toward all beings, insects, animals, even the unseen. Some monasteries maintain insect sanctuaries, moving ants or beetles instead of killing them. This isn't superstition. It's training empathy in its purest form. Care for life in every form. Now, you might wonder, can modern people live this way? Of course not entirely. But the principle translates perfectly. See the shared humanity in everyone you meet. That sits the monk, sits quiet superpower. When your focus shifts from self-centered worry to compassionate awareness, your mind lightens. Problems shrink because your world expands. One monk once told a visitor, "When you live for yourself, your happiness is as small as your skin. When you live for others, it becomes as wide as the sky." That's why monks who live with so little still feel so full. They self-replaced possession with connection. And through that, they find a joy that doesn't depend on luck, wealth, or status. It grows naturally from the heart. And yet, their compassion doesn't make them overly serious or saintly. Spend a day in a monastery and you'll hear laughter, soft, genuine, frequent. Because once the heart is light, humor returns easily. That humor, that quiet joy, comes from the next principle monks live by: finding happiness in the present moment. For monks, happiness isn't a future goal, it's a daily habit. They don't wait for perfect conditions or big achievements to feel content. They learn to enjoy what's already here, in this exact breath, in this exact moment. That may sound simple, even naive. But this focus on presence is one of the most profound skills monks develop, and it's the foundation of their quiet joy. Each monastery practices mindfulness differently, but the intention is the same: to fully live the moment you're in. Whether eating, walking, or even washing dishes, monks train to keep awareness steady and gentle. If the mind drifts, they simply notice and return. No guilt, no judgment. During meals, for example, talking is often minimal or silent. Monks pay attention to every movement, lifting the bowl, smelling the food, tasting each bite. It's not a performance of politeness, it's training gratitude. They see food not as fuel or comfort, but as connection to the earth, to farmers, to the community that prepared it. Compare that to modern eating habits: scrolling through phones, rushing through meals, barely tasting what we consume. We eat for distraction, not nourishment. The monks flip that script. Every bite becomes a meditation. As one teacher put it, when you taste one grain of rice fully, you taste all of life. This practice extends beyond meals. Walking too becomes sacred. In some monasteries, monks walk slowly in circles after meditation, feeling each step touch the earth. They don't walk to arrive, they walk to be alive. It's a physical reminder. Joy doesn't come from reaching the destination, but from being present on the path. Modern science again echoes this ancient truth. Studies show that people who focus on what they're doing in the moment, even mundane tasks, report higher levels of happiness than those whose minds wander. Mind wandering, it turns out, often leads to dissatisfaction, even when thoughts are pleasant. Presence, on the other hand, anchors peace. Monks cultivate presence through many small rituals. Lighting incense before meditation, pausing before entering a room, taking 3 slow breaths before speaking. These little pauses remind the mind to arrive not just physically, but mentally. Their steps also the practice of gratitude. Each night, some monasteries end the day with reflection: what went well, what was learned, who was helped. No matter how ordinary the day, they find something to appreciate. Gratitude doesn't deny pain. It balances it. One senior monk once said, "We don't meditate to escape life. We meditate so we can finally see it." That's the secret to their happiness, not constant joy, but constant awareness. Even sorrow or tiredness becomes easier when it's met with presence instead of resistance. For viewers today, this step might be the most transformative. You don't need a monastery to practice it. Start by doing one thing at a time. Drinking tea without checking your phone, walking without headphones, breathing slowly before answering messages. These are modern versions of monastic mindfulness. As attention strengthens, the rush of life softens. You start noticing sunlight, voices, the rhythm of your own breath. Then slowly, happiness stops being something you chase. It becomes something you notice. With this, monks complete the circle of simplicity, from clearing the outer world to mastering the inner one. But their wisdom doesn't stay locked in monasteries. It offers lessons that anyone, anywhere can live by. And that's where we end, with the modern takeaways of a simple, happy life. What happens when we bring monastic wisdom into modern life, into cities, apartments, and offices instead of temples and mountains? It doesn't mean shaving your head or moving to the Himalayas. It means borrowing the principles that make monks free and translating them into daily habits that fit the world we live in. The first lesson is simplicity by design. You don't need to give up everything. Just reduce the noise. Choose what truly adds value. That could mean cleaning your workspace, limiting social media, or setting boundaries for your time. Each small act of simplification returns a piece of your peace. Think of it like clearing static from a radio. The message of your own mind comes through clearer. The second lesson is discipline as stability. You can create your own monastery through rhythm. Wake up at the same hour. Eat at regular times. Schedule quiet moments deliberately. This isn't restriction. It's structure that supports freedom. When you know your pattern, your energy stops leaking into decisions that don't matter. The third lesson is mind training. You don't need long retreats to start. Just take a few minutes a day to sit, breathe, and notice your thoughts. Even 10 minutes of awareness reshapes the brain's stress response over time. It's the same foundation monks build over decades, awareness before reaction. The fourth lesson is compassion in action. Hold the door for someone, send a kind message, forgive faster. Small acts of care ripple outward, and remind your brain that you're part of something larger. In a world that prizes independence, monks show us that true happiness grows in interdependence. The fifth lesson is presence over pursuit. Instead of asking, "What will make me happy?" ask, "What is here right now?" Joy often hides in plain sight, in warm sunlight, laughter, silence, or the taste of morning tea. Monks don't find happiness by adding more, but by noticing more. Put together, these steps create a way of living that's calm but not passive, simple but not empty. You could call it practical peace. It's a mindset anyone can build, not by changing the world, but by changing how we move through it. If you think about it, monks aren't escaping life, they're mastering it. Their days prove that fulfillment doesn't depend on possessions or status, but on perspective and practice. They live lightly, give freely, and rest deeply. Not because they've escaped problems, but because they've trained to meet them with clarity and compassion. And in a time when modern life feels louder and faster than ever, their example offers a quiet kind of rebellion. You don't need to become a monk to live simply. You just need to remember what simplicity really means. Having less, so you can be more. The monks don't chase happiness. They practice it, moment by moment. And anyone can start that practice. Today, right where they are. Take a breath. Look around. Simplicity, peace, and happiness aren't set far away. They've been here all along, waiting for us to notice.